Yeah. Has your research shown whether this is being orchestrated by one race of beings, or is it a combination of several?
Well, I know that with each of the hybrids, they have the genetics from a few different races, not just from one. Like one person might have genetics from tall white Zeta beings and blue Arcturian beings and little gray beings and reptilian beings and Pleiadian beings and even other types of beings as well. Those beings seem to have gotten together and chosen this person um, to become a hybrid. And the way that they do that, do the hybridizing of these people who are living here with us on Earth as people, um, is it's done before birth, definitely. And sometimes the hybridization is done even before conception. And the way that that is done is that on one occasion, the eggs will be taken from the woman, the mother, and sperm will be taken from the father, taken by the extraterrestrials. And then they mix that together with a combination of their extraterrestrial genetics, thereby creating an embryo. And then on another occasion, they take the human mother, the human woman, she's not a mother yet, and they implant the little embryo into her uterus. And then she carries the baby full term and gives birth the way that the rest of us humans do.
Right.
A second method that's very common for this is that the mother is already pregnant with a baby. And during the pregnancy, usually it seems about the 5th or 6th month in the pregnancy, the mother will be taken and injected with the extraterrestrial genetics, as in like a hypodermic needle, and those genetics will go into the fetus through the wall of the uterus and the wall of the abdomen of the mother, and then the baby continues to be carried full term and born in the way that we all give birth to our children.
Yeah, one hybrid I spoke with recently says that she actually remembers the actual moment that while she was in her mother's womb being injected at that moment, and she actually remembers that.
Well, I can respect that. It is very possible to regress people to life in the womb, and I've done that a number of times. And it's amazing, from my point of view, how conscious and aware these infants are while still in the mother's womb. And they can be aware of things like receiving different genetics. And one man I worked with for, probably about 10 years of regressions now and then, we went back in his first regression to being a fetus in his mother's womb.
Wow.
And an extraterrestrial being came and put his hands over the abdomen of the mother, apparently, because the fetus, my client, could feel all this wonderful heat and energy coming in through the wall of the uterus. And telepathically, the fetus heard the extraterrestrial being telling him why he was there and what he was doing.
Wow.
And in that particular case, the being was there saying that the fetus needed help, that he had a congenital hole in his heart, and that if the being didn't add healing energy to it, and really help out with that condition that the uh, baby would not be able to live shortly after birth.
Hmm.
So this being said, I am putting an invisible electromagnetic strip over the hole in your heart. And so the baby was born and lived and grew up to be a big 6'4" strong man and
Hmm.
lived to his mid 50s. And along the way, during his growing up experience and also his adult experience, every now and then he would be taken for an encounter with this very same extraterrestrial being. The man was sure it was the very same one. And every time he was taken to the spaceship, he was laid on a medical type table, and the being said he was refurbishing the invisible electromagnetic strip over the hole in
Wow,
this
that's
man's
amazing.
heart. Yeah, and it kept him going all those years. And then when he was about 48 years old, it was detected that he really had a problem with his heart. Until then, nobody suspected such a thing.
No.
So at age 48, he went in for open heart surgery. And it happened, fortunately, that his wife was a surgical nurse, and she got permission to be there in the operating room while the surgery was going on. So she witnessed that the surgeon doing the heart surgery exclaimed once he had opened up the man and said, "Oh my goodness, this man has a hole in his heart the
Wow.
size of a silver dollar. And yet, very little blood is trickling out somehow, even with a big gaping hole, that somehow the blood is mostly being kept in his heart." So that, you see, that really corroborated with the being putting the
Yeah,
invisible electromagnetic
that's
strip
fascinating.
over the hole in this
Yeah,
person's heart.
yeah.
Yeah,
Barbara, is hybridization, is it a modern phenomenon, or has it been going on since time memorial?
I don't know the answer to that question. It's a very interesting question, something I wonder about. I suspect it probably has been going on, and it could be very well that some of our spiritual teachers, whose wisdom goes down through the ages, it's possible, just a guess, but it seems very possible to me that maybe they were hybrids too and got some of their spiritual wisdom and perspective from these beings.
Hmm.
So, one thing I would like to mention right away is that um, the hybrids whom I know all have had a lifetime of visits from the beings whose genetics they have. So, in other words, they have beings coming into their room, daytime or nighttime, and they are actually taken away to the spacecraft for various purposes, mostly for educational purposes and medical checkups to be sure they're doing all right physically and to heal them if there's anything amiss with them physiologically.
Yeah.
So anyway, they have a lifetime of experiences with these beings, and they love these extraterrestrial beings because the beings feel like they're real family. In fact, all of these hybrids whom I know, they have said that from the very earliest time in their lives, very earliest ages, that they've always felt that their physical earth family is not their
Real.
real,
Yeah.
true family. And they've always looked up in the sky and thought, oh, that's my real home. That's where I really come from.
Hmm.
And you see, it's because they have the genetics from those beings
Yeah.
who are out in space.
Have you met a gentleman by the name of Mike Oram from the UK?
Yes, I heard him speak
Yeah,
and
he,
read
he
his
tells a
book.
he tells a
I don't
fascinating
know
story
him.
of, yeah, when he was a 4-year-old, and we'll be featuring it soon on Aliens Revealed Live. But he talks
Oh,
about
good.
being a 4-year-old and telling his mum you know, uh, telling his mum that she and his dad weren't his real parents, and so a conversation took place, and he told her exactly where he was from. He was from, I think it was the Pleiades system, and she, what does a parent do in that situation? You kind of think, well, a kid's imagination, and so yeah, it's fascinating. Um,
Well, parents so often don't know what to do when their children speak about being from somewhere else, or even children who just say, "Oh, some strange beings came into my room last night, and I don't know what's going on." And if there's one parent who has had that sort of thing happen too in his or her own life, that person is usually more sympathetic. But for the parent who hasn't had anything like that and doesn't know anything about it, it's really, really baffling.
yeah. Barbara, what do you say to skeptics who dismiss this without any research, and that's normally how they operate?
Oh, I know. And I so much understand that. I completely do, because I did not know in my life, um, well, until really 1991. Um, so I had lived a lot of years before that. I did not know that there was reality to this. I had a real interest in certain movies like E.T.
Hmm.
and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, both, I think, really wonderful films, and had a, a sense that, well, let's say a resonation going on in me that, oh, wouldn't it be nice if this were true? Wouldn't it be nice if there were really other beings out there in space? But I didn't really think it was true. I thought it was science fiction. But it wasn't until 1991 when somebody actually came to me for regression work that I realized, session by session by session, with
Hmm.
the first person who came for that, that wow, this really convinces me that these visits and these other beings are real. And you see, before that, before 1991, I had been doing several years of past life regression therapy. I had been trained to do regression therapy by the Association of Past Life Research and Therapies in Riverside, California. And after those years of training, I felt very comfortable in doing regressions. And during those years, it didn't occur to me that people would ever come with this particular concern, wondering what it was about these beings showing up and seeming to take them away for a while. Um, so it was new to me, but soon became very, very convincing. And after the first person came in 1991 for that particular reason, just a few months later, another woman came, and she had probably 15 regressions with me over a period of several years. And another woman that same year came and worked with me for 12 years and probably at least 60 regressions. And it just happened. I mean, I'm amazed, absolutely amazed, because I never advertised about doing this,
Hmm.
but people have just found me miraculously, I think, in some cases, They found me through lectures that I give at conferences and so forth, and interviews. And when they're ready to find out for themselves what their clues might mean, then they get in touch with me.
Yeah, yeah.
But I certainly had never earlier in my life expected to be doing anything like this.
Um, it's a great book, Meet the Hybrids. As I say, it's so fascinating. But the one part I really loved was when you were telling the story of Christy Ann Quiros. If you remember it,
Yes.
could you relate that story to our audience?
Well, Christiane Curios is a psychotherapist. She actually was not one of the hybrids
No.
we interviewed and wrote about, but we did interview her at length anyway. And I had previously known her for quite a number of years, probably, oh, at least 20 years, through meetings that we both went to about the UFO subject. And anyway, Christiane um, began to, uh, well, she was working for her doctoral thesis for her PhD, and she had to, at a certain point, decide on what her doctoral thesis would be. And so she went to the beach one day here in California and just sort of sat there and got lost in thought. And what am I going to write about? What would be interesting to me? And then the thought just came to her as if from somewhere else that she was to write about hybrids, ET human hybrids. Well, she had never heard of that before, but she somehow resonated with that thought and began to research it. And to make a long story short, she met quite a few people, I would say several people whom she interviewed at great length, and eventually came to the conclusion that yes, there are some people who are hybridized by these beings. She had already been very interested in the UFO phenomenon before that idea came to her, but she had not really been working with people who experience extraterrestrial contacts. So this was relatively new for her at the time. But anyway, she went ahead and she did that doctoral paper. And my co-author, Miguel Mendonça, and I got hold of the paper from her. Actually, I had already had it because I already knew her. Um, but anyway, it was very wonderful for us to know that she had interviewed a number of people and had determined that they were hybrids. In other words, it was sort of encouraging for our work
Yeah.
to continue that work further with different people who were hybrids.
Okay, so one last word on the hybrid topic. Just scanning a lot of the forums online, there are many people who tend to think that hybrids are a threat to humanity, but from the people I talk to and speaking with you today, that seems far from the truth.
Oh, you said what? I missed that word you said, that there's something of
That
humanity?
that they're a threat to
A
humanity.
threat.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, that's a good point to bring up because there's a very well-known and respected professor back on the East Coast, Dr. David Jacobs, who has specialized in regressing people to extraterrestrial experiences and has regressed people to experiences that they've had with ET human hybrids on board the spaceships. I've had a lot of those regressions as well. But our conclusions are completely different from each other. David Jacobs is convinced, because of the work that he's done That means the clients who have come to him for regression work, he is convinced that hybrids have been especially bred by certain extraterrestrial groups in order to have the hybrids come and live here on Earth with the goal of eventually taking over the Earth with hybrids. Now, that is just really the polar opposite experience that I have had with anything to do with hybrids. In my experience, the hybrids I know and have heard of, and probably some of the ones you know as well, are here for very, very benevolent purposes. They're here really to help humanity,
Right.
to take over. It has nothing to do with that at all. It's totally in service. In fact, my co-author and I put a subtitle on the book, Meet the Hybrids, and the subtitle is The Life and Times of ET Ambassadors on Earth.
Right.
And I love that because that's what they are. They are ET ambassadors on Earth. You see, I think it makes sense to realize that the extraterrestrial beings living on other planets, most of them look so different than we human beings look. And their whole physiognomy is really different. Their biological systems. So they cannot come here and actually live on our planet.
Right.
They would not be able to handle the bacteria and viruses, and nor would they be considered normal enough looking from a human point of view to be accepted here. So because they cannot come here themselves, that is why they create these hybrids. They take certain human beings and create hybrids
Right.
because they know that those people will be able to thrive here like the rest of us and be totally accepted here and do the work that these beings would like to see done here to help improve humanity.